And I'll go ahead and start the webinar. Hi, all. I see that people are joining. We're going to just wait a few minutes to let people sign on. Let me, before we jump in, just give a few brief announcements while we're waiting for others to join the webinar. Today's webinar is on tree selection, watering, and care. We've had two past webinars on sustainable landscaping and backyard composting, which are available. The presentations and the videos are available on the greenerdavis.org website. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link for workshops. We have one more workshop in the series coming up on November 17th, again at noon. That one is on leak detection and using the city's customer water use portal called Aquahawk to assist in checking for leaks. I think I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Our speakers for today are from Tree Davis. First, we have Erin Donnelly Marino, and she is the executive director of Tree Davis. She's honored and excited to be leading the team at Tree Davis. She has a diverse professional background from state and private forest advocacy. And she has worked with state and federal agency evaluation of restoration effectiveness in the Columbia River estuary, and academic research supporting the adaptive management efforts that maximize biodiversity in human-dominated landscapes. In her free time, you'll find her outside enjoying the outdoors with her family in the forests and watersheds both near and far away. We also have Yael Franco, who's the program manager with Tree Davis. She's found it very rewarding to work at Tree Davis, especially as they implement the community Canopy program and the Prop 68 Cal Fire tree planting program that's in partnership with the city of Davis. She loves teaching people how to plant and care for trees and has an academic interest in the community stewardship of urban forest, as well as urban factors that affect young tree mortality. She is an ISA certified arborist and an ISA risk assessment qualified. She spends most of her free time riding her bike around Davis. It's a great place to ride bikes, and working in her garden. So go ahead and let Erin and Yael take it away.
Great. Thanks so much for having us today. Thank you for the invitation to present to everyone. We're very excited to be here. As Dawn said, I'm Erin Donnelly Marino, Executive Director of Tree Davis. And Tree Davis has a long and proud partnership with the City of Davis Urban Forestry Division and with Greener Davis. And we're just excited to share with you all today some information about selecting the right tree species, thinking about where we plant trees and how you select the right tree for the right place. Then we'll talk to you a little bit about watering and caring for your young trees. Next slide, please. So before we dive in, I'd like to just start by talking to everyone about what urban forestry is. The name kind of says it itself, but it's also a little bit of an amorphous concept. When you think of a forest, you might think of Lake Tahoe, the mountain region. You might think of a more natural landscape, but the collection of trees in our urban landscape is what we refer to as the urban forest. So the urban forestry is the care and management of trees in urban settings for the purpose of improving the urban environment. And urban foresters like myself and Yael, we plant and maintain trees. We support appropriate tree and forest preservation. We conduct research and promote the many benefits of trees for our communities. And advocacy is also a piece of this as well. Urban forestry advocates raise awareness of the role of trees as critical urban infrastructure that benefit the entire community. Next slide, please. So again, when we think about the urban forest, you might be wondering, are we just talking about the trees in parks? Are we talking about the trees at the Poudre Creek Parkway? Which trees exactly are we talking about? And there are many, many different kinds of trees. When we're talking about the urban forest, we're talking about all of the trees collectively in our urban landscape. So that includes residential trees in people's front yards, even the trees in their backyards. We're talking about trees in parks, open space trees like those that you will find in the Poudre Creek Parkway or out in the Wild Horse Agricultural Buffer. Trees in greenbelts as you're riding your bike along and you're flying by all those trees, that's part of the urban forest. Trees on municipal public spaces, trees on private commercial spaces, and we're very, very lucky that we have the UC Davis Arboretum as part of our amazing urban forest here in Yolo County. So university campuses and arboretums are also all-encompassing in this grand urban forest concept. Next slide, please. So why do we plant trees in urban settings? Why is this an important idea? And as the old saying goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So I'm going to share with you several slides now that discuss the importance of trees and the benefits to trees, the benefits of trees specifically in an urban setting. Next slide, please. So to begin with, trees are very important for helping to maintain good air quality in urban settings. If you look at the diagram that we have in front of us here, you can see that there is a roadway, there is a jogging path, there's a sidewalk, it looks like perhaps a school, and a residential structure, and then interspersed between these buildings, between these hardscapes, between these roadways are trees. And trees intercept harmful particulate matter that can be either from forest fires, it can also be particulate matter from combustion vehicles that like showed here on the road. Trees also absorb harmful gases like tropospheric ozone that can cause asthma and other medical problems. And when trees absorb these harmful gases, they're incorporating them into their systems and they're releasing oxygen. And a single urban tree can convert enough carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide into oxygen to meet the oxygen needs of 2 people for a full year. So these are oxygen factories. They are pumping out oxygen for us. They are capturing those particles out of the air. They are absorbing the harmful pollutants. And when you're in an urban setting, I was just walking through the park this morning, there were leaf blowers blowing. There was a big giant trash truck in there. And you know, that makes a lot of particulate pollution, and the trees really help to mitigate those kind of impacts in an urban setting. So yeah, when we have these air quality benefits, we end up with reduced asthma problems in urban settings, reduced heart attacks, and reduced strokes. These are statistically supported by research that urban spaces with more trees have literally healthier people. Next slide, please. Trees are also very important for helping to intercept and clean stormwater. You know, we're living in interesting times where previously this year, we had one of the record-breaking dry stretches without rain, followed by a couple of weekends ago, almost 6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So we're seeing extremes of dry and very wet. And when we get these extreme wet events, trees are extremely important in intercepting and cleaning that stormwater as it arrives. So we have an image in front of us here of a tree in a rainstorm. And if you look at the left-hand side, you can sort of see that rain is falling very hard and very fast. Nothing is intercepting that rain as it falls, and it's falling onto an impervious surface that then washes all the dirty roadway material, oils, pollutants, pesticides, all sorts of things off of this impervious surface into storm drains and then out into our creeks, into the delta, and eventually the ocean. But when we have a tree, The tree is intercepting that stormwater. Some of it gets captured on the leaves. Some of it percolates through the leaves into the root system below. Some of it goes down the stem through stem flow. And what it does is it slows down the water as it's falling. It captures it and it funnels it down to the root system where it is going into the soil at a much slower rate than it would if it's not intercepted by something above it. So the tree is taking in that water, and the water that isn't taken up by the roots then becomes part of the groundwater system, and can also become runoff that is moving much more slowly and is much cleaner. Next slide, please. Trees are also extremely important for urban biodiversity. So continuing to have trees in our cities may very well determine what urban wildlife species can persist into the next century. So all of the vegetation that we have in our urban spaces, whether it's the understory environment or whether it's the upper canopy environment, all of this sort of lays the habitat framework for the wildlife species that are able to exist here. And collectively, this vegetation and wildlife together provides wonderful ecosystem services, both directly for the urban environment and also for the surrounding agricultural landscape. So for example, bees and other pollinators that rely on flowering plants, they help increase the economic yields in our surrounding agricultural landscape. Insectivorous birds, those are birds that eat insects, and raptors provide pest control of insect outbreaks. Our owls eat our rodents. Thank goodness we have so many rats in Davis, but we also have lots of owls. So there's a food web system there. Vultures and other scavengers dispose of waste. Birds also contribute to local economies via tourism. I know there are a lot of active birders in our community and people who come from all over to see the bird diversity of the Central Valley. And birds also add to the quality of life living here by boosting cultural and spiritual well-being, enhancing the aesthetic experiences, and strengthening a sense of place. I know my kids and I really love watching the migratory bird populations change and shift with the seasons. The picture we have in this particular slide is a northern flicker. And this is the time of year when this woodpecker starts showing up in our neighborhoods. And my kids and I get so excited when we see this in the park. We know fall is here. So thank you, trees. Thank you, wildlife. Next slide, please. Another very important thing that trees do for us is they help mitigate the urban heat island effect. And this may be a new term to some, so I'm going to use our diagram here to explain exactly what that is. As you can see, we've got a sort of like a landscape continuum on this figure where the far edges of the picture are either rural farmland or other type of rural or suburban setting. And those are about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And then as you move towards the center of the figure, you're experiencing more impervious surfaces, you're experiencing more asphalt, you're experiencing more hardscape, taller buildings that are made of man-made materials. And as you head into that downtown core of this image, you can see that it's 92 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's a big temperature difference between the outskirts of this town and the downtown center. And that's partly because heat gets retained in these dark surfaces, dark rooftops, because so much of the space is hardscape and not green space. There's very little evapotranspiration happening in these spaces. Heat gets trapped by buildings and reflected back by buildings. A lot of this heat gets absorbed and stored overnight. So even when the sun goes down, the downtown center is going to remain much hotter than the outer lying areas. So this is the urban heat island effect. And if we're able to incorporate more green space and more trees in this type of downtown center, in these really urban spaces, we could temper this urban heat island effect, and we could try to have the temperatures in the downtown core more reminiscent of something in the commercial sphere or urban residential or even the park sphere, where you don't see that accentuation of heat that comes with the man-made materials. Next slide, please. So trees are also really important for providing shading of structures and residences themselves. And a properly placed tree here on the west side of buildings and on the south side of buildings, that's where we get the most intense afternoon sun in the heat of the day in the summer. Those are the sides of the buildings that are really going to get cooked. And so having trees on the south side of the building, on the west side of the building, can reduce energy bills by up to 35%, which in averages comes out to around $250 a year. So proper placement of trees, thinking about where you're placing your tree on your property is also really important. Next slide, please. Trees also help us with public safety. Trees planted in medians and dividers separate vehicles from pedestrians and help drivers distinguish the boundary between the street and adjacent areas where people are walking. And a well-developed canopy can reduce traffic speeds by up to 15 miles per hour, which improves safety and makes the road a safer place for everyone. So this may seem like, oh, right, trees make it safer. Trees make people drive more slowly. But what it is in this picture you see, there's canopy closure over the top of this road. And if you're just driving down a highway with no trees, you're basically just looking down a cement chute. And the psychology of that is your brain tells you there are no impediments in front of me. I can go as fast as I want. But when you have greenscape, when you have trees, you have canopy, you have things that are enclosing over the top of the road, psychologically, you're receiving signals that you need to pay attention to your environment as you're moving through it. You need to be aware of what is happening around you. And so again, this is research-backed. Studies show us that on average, areas with canopy closure over streets can have up to 15 miles per hour slower speeds and less traffic accidents. Next slide, please. Trees and infrastructure. Trees actually are infrastructure, but trees also help us protect some of the hardscape infrastructure around us. So one of the realities of living here in the Central Valley is that we have the unblinking eye of the sun shining down upon us for a good part of the year, a lot of the year. And so there's UV radiation that comes with that, which is hard on the asphalt. And then additionally, we have pretty big temperature fluctuations. So in the summertime, it's really hot and these materials are heated up and they're expanding. And then in the wintertime, we can even have a hard frost here sometimes. And in those cases, our infrastructure, our hardscapes, the materials they're made of are contracting. And so when we have these big expansion and contraction of materials, that's where you get a lot of wear and tear on our roads. We wonder why are our roads breaking up around us? It's partly just because we live in an environment of extremes. And so having trees, having shade over our streets, over our sidewalks, it can improve the lifespan of street services by up to 60%. And as I mentioned, this is the damage that does occur is often because of daily temperature fluctuations. And when you have that shade, there's a dampening effect where there's not as much fluctuation from hot to cold. The temperature range that it's experiencing is more narrow. So trees help expand the life of our infrastructure. Next slide, please. So now I've shared with you some of the benefits of urban forests, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tree Davis in particular. So Tree Davis is your local urban forestry nonprofit organization. We've been around since 1992, and the mission of Tree Davis is to enhance and expand the urban forest by teaching the people of our community to plant and care for trees. So it's really a two-pronged mission. One is education. One is teaching the people of our community about the importance of trees, about the benefits that we all receive from the trees around us, about the technical aspects of planting a tree and caring for a tree. And then there's the actual doing of that. There's getting those trees in the ground. And I really love the marriage of those two things. We bring our community members together, as you can see in this photo. We have volunteer planting events almost every single weekend between October and April. And so anybody who's watching that would like to be a part of our events, you can visit our website, treedavis.org. And we have a section on there where you can sign up to be a volunteer and learn about the events that are happening in your neighborhood. Next slide, please.
Hi, Erin. I apologize. I'm going to jump in real quick. I forgot to let people know at the beginning that if they have any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand button on your screen. So you can raise your hand, and then at an appropriate break or at the end of the presentation, we will take those questions. I apologize. Sorry. Thanks, Erin.
No problem. No problem. Yeah. And as Don said, please feel free to ask questions as you go. That's just fine. So I've got a short video for us here. The title is "What Does Tree Davis Do for Our Community?" And I'll ask Jennifer to please roll the video.
What does Tree Davis do for our community? Tree Davis's mission is to enhance and expand the urban forest by teaching the people of our community to plant and care for trees. We bring several important benefits to all of Yolo County. First, we mitigate the urban heat island effect. Did you know that our region can expect nearly 100 days per year over 90 degrees by mid-century? Trees provide critical shade and cooling to our region through evapotranspiration. Shaded asphalt can be up to 60 degrees cooler than unshaded asphalt. So trees save us a bundle in cooling costs, and they make our region more livable. Second, trees and pleasing landscaping can increase property values up to 20%. Trees also strengthen local businesses. People spend more time shopping in areas with higher canopy cover. Third, trees improve our mental and physical health. We are simply happier and healthier when we are amongst trees. They help us feel less stressed and less anxious. We're more likely to engage in physical exercise when we have access to treed spaces. Many wildlife species use urban trees. Trees provide food, shelter, places for mating, and rearing their young. Climate change is rising surface temperatures and causing mega fires in California, and trees are our best defense against these challenging realities. Trees store carbon above and below ground, and they filter harmful particles and smoke from the air. In short, trees are nature's very best defense against the impacts of our changing climate. Lastly, and most importantly, trees bring us together. They make Yolo County a greener, cleaner, and cooler place to call home. For all of these reasons and more, Tree Davis is proud to be your local leader in planting trees and growing community.
Great. Next slide, please. So I've now told you about why trees are so important in the urban environment. I've explained what Tree Davis is and what we bring to the community. And now I'd like to dive into tree selection, planting the right tree for the right place, and how to care for these trees. So this image is provided courtesy of PG&E. And unfortunately, we've all become very accustomed to the new reality that is wildfire season here in California. And it's very, very important that we all do our part to make sure that trees and any kind of vegetation is planted in a safe way where it's not going to interfere with electricity distribution, and it's less likely that there will be fires. So when we're thinking about where we're going to plant our trees, it's very important to consider the surrounding environment. You almost have to think of yourself as a tree and stand in that place where you're thinking about planting. Think about the vertical space above where that tree will be. What is that tree going to encounter not just when it's a baby tree, but when it's a full-sized mature tree. You have to think about what species you're planting, how big is it going to get, what shape is the canopy going to be, what is it going to encounter as it grows. Another thing to consider is the below ground environment. So thinking about where you're placing that tree relative to structures, relative to underground utilities, thinking about proximity to the hardscape, whether that is your driveway, whether that is a pathway in the park. Also being mindful of proximity to structures, again, whether that is your backyard shed, your house, the community building at the park, your commercial place of business. And then also thinking when you're planting about what kind of light will this tree get when it is planted in this particular location? Do I have a species that requires full sunlight? Do I have full sunlight available to that tree? If, for example, we were to think about in this image, the family home that's on the far left side of the image, that's a family home that already has a lot of mature shade trees. And if they're thinking about planting another tree in that backyard, they're going to need a very shade tolerant species because those trees are already shading what's around it. So thinking about the light exposure needs of the plant that you're planting and the light exposure available to whatever it is that you're planting. Another thing to keep in mind is the soil type in which you're planting, the compaction level of that soil, what has happened in this place over time, as well as the drainage of that soil. So here in the Central Valley, we generally have pretty clay soil, and it's easy to compact clay soil. The particles are very, very small and generally stick together. So compaction is something that happens very easily in our soils. It also, with clay soil, doesn't drain particularly quickly because you don't have those interstitial spaces between the particles for water to be able to seep through. So being mindful about the soil type, what has happened in that place in the past. For example, we recently did a tree planting in the parking lot of the Explore It Science Center here in Davis. And we're very excited to be bringing shade to that particular parking lot. But we also did a little bit of urban archaeology while we were digging to plant these trees. And in some places we found that when the parking lot was built, some of the leftover pavement was just sort of chucked into the dirt. So as you were digging, you were encountering sort of like underground hardscape. So we had to get a little bit creative and move trees around to make sure that we were getting the soil needs of the particular trees that we were planting met. Excellent. Next slide, please. So one more note about utilities and structures. So in this particular picture, you can see if you are planning to plant a tree anywhere near power lines, for overhead power lines, you want to think about a maximum of 25 feet vegetation. For underground utilities, you always want to start by calling 811, which is the USA DIG number. These are folks that will come out and mark utilities on the surface of the grass or of the dirt to tell you whether or not there are buried utilities under there. And if there are buried utilities, you have to stay at least 5 feet away from all those underground utilities. And then depending on the size of the tree, there are specifications that you need to think about with regard to how close it can be to a house. In this case, 10 feet away from a structure, how close it should be to your neighbor's property, be a good neighbor, stay at least 5 feet away from the property line. And then also think about what is the root environment of the tree going to be encountering. You want to stay at least 2 feet away from the pavement for small trees. So on the left-hand side of the image here, you can see good tree placement. On the right-hand side of the image, you can see tree placement that's not going so well. Next slide, please. Great. So I've already said for safety, we need to keep trees far, far away from electricity distribution lines. So you can see the tall tree on the right here with the exclamation point on it. That's a no-no. We don't want the trees going into the electricity distribution lines. However, communication lines are different. In some cases, we have existing telephone lines or cable lines that go on power poles, and it is okay for trees to go through those. Next slide, please. So when you're selecting your tree, you want to think about the category size of that tree at maturity. So when this tree is full grown, is it going to be a small tree, which is generally a height shorter than 30 feet? Is it going to be a medium-sized tree, which can be a height or spread of less than 50 feet, or a large tree with a height or spread of greater than 50 feet? These are important things to keep in mind when you're selecting your tree and thinking about where that tree will be planted, as well as the shape of the canopy. As you can see, there's a lot of different growing forms for tree canopy, and that will determine when that tree grows. Is it going to go straight up? In which case, perhaps it can be a little bit closer to some things around it. Is it going to be one of these spreading vase shapes where you have to be really cognizant of the spread? These are all important things to keep in mind. Next slide, please. And then choosing where to plant trees adjacent to each other. So for small trees, you want to have them 15 to 20 feet apart, medium trees 25 to 30 feet apart, and large trees more than 30 feet apart. Next slide, please. Another thing to think about when you're selecting your tree is we want to make sure that we're selecting species that are the most pest and disease resistant as possible. Some of the diseases and pests we need to think about in this particular area are Dutch elm disease, which is a fungal disease that is spread by beetles. That's what you see in the image here. These are borers in wood that are created by beetle larvae, and the beetles spread the fungus as they bore through the wood. Anthracnose is also a fungus that can affect trees in our area, especially some of our sycamores. Fire blight is a bacterial pest or disease, I suppose, a bacterial disease. And this is more commonly an issue with fruit trees. Sudden oak death is usually more coastal, but in some cases we have seen a little bit of it here and there in Yolo County. Right now, the invasive shothole borer, which is an insect, is mostly in Southern California, but we're doing everything we can to have containment so that doesn't spread its way up to Northern California. So keeping in mind the susceptibility of the species that you would like to plant and trying to plant those that are not susceptible to these pests and disease. Next slide, please. Another thing to think about is everybody loves the idea of a beautiful fall tree with fall colors. I love fall. I always look forward to fall, but then people sort of realize, oh, does that mean I have to deal with leaves? Does that mean I have to deal with all the other things that my tree drops? And so some people love having sort of the natural look. Some people love having nature in their front yard, and actually leaving the leaves on the ground is very good for our insects and our local biodiversity. It's very beneficial. Some people don't like that. So really asking yourself, what sort of a look do you want for your space? What sort of aesthetic are you going for? And then being real about what does this tree produce? If it produces flowers, there may be pollen. Thinking about, these are in the central image here, these are what's called samara, which are winged seeds that come off of some trees. And then making sure that you're selecting a tree species that does not have an invasive root system, and being mindful of what that root system is going to encounter as it grows. Next slide, please. And there's sort of a conversation that goes on here in Davis and in Yolo County about planting native trees relative to non-native trees. And we support the planting of native trees whenever possible, when it's the right tree for the right space. In general, we try to partner with the open space division, and in areas where you don't have very much proximity to buildings, to plant some of these native trees like valley oaks, blue oaks, California buckeye, things like that. However, in the urban environment, non-native trees can sometimes be better suited to providing or being able to survive in suboptimal soil environments, dealing with that heat that I mentioned before that radiates off of the hardscape, dealing with drought, having increased stand biodiversity at the regional level. So we really want to make sure that across the urban forest, we don't just have one or a handful of species, because if one of those pests or disease that I talked about earlier happens to show up, then we lose the urban forest. So having a lot of diversity, having some native trees, some non-native trees, and then even within those categories, many different species and many different biological families, taxonomic families, is very important. And then one important point is there are some trees that are considered invasive species, and these are trees that we really want to avoid. For example, the tree of heaven, which you can see across highways and freeways and roadways all over California because they're invasive and that's how they spread. Salt cedar, which is particularly problematic in watersheds. You can definitely find it in our Poudre Creek watershed and Cache Creek watershed nearby. Some privets, some acacias, butterfly bushes, and large woody shrubs like French broom and Scotch broom. These all really are to be avoided. Next slide, please. All right, so it's important to think about, where am I planting this tree? Is this a tree that's going to be planted in a backyard? Is this a tree that's going to be planted in the city's street tree easement space, which is within 10 feet of the sidewalk in the front yard? And if it's going to be in the street easement, in the street tree easement, it's really important to enlist Tree Davis or the City of Davis Urban Forestry Division in citing your tree, as that tree will become a city tree and it will be put into the city's inventory. So hopefully you'll be working either with the Urban Forestry Division or Tree Davis. And in that case, we will help you call 811 to make sure that we're selecting the correct space in that easement. And then also doing all the considerations that I mentioned earlier in this presentation about proximity to structures, proximity to utilities, placing that tree specifically with shading and saving on your utility bill, that sort of thing. We will help you with that. And then if you're planting a tree beyond 10 feet of the easement space, that is not going to be a city street tree. You should still call before you dig and take all of those considerations into mind about proximity to structures and utilities. And even though that wouldn't be a city street tree, it wouldn't be going into the City of Davis's inventory. If you have questions about which tree, right place, you can still reach out to Tree Davis for help. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned in the video earlier, looking into the future, we are seeing climate change up close and personal, front and center right now. We know that it's going to get hotter. We know that it's going to get drier. We know that we're going to see some of these extremes of hundreds of days without rainfall and then large rain events in short periods of time. So really thinking about, trees are such long-lived species. When we plant our trees, what the tree is experiencing today is not necessarily what the tree is going to experience 50 years down the road when it's finally reaching maturity. So Tree Davis has been working in partnership with a collection of researchers through the US Forest Service and through UC Davis, who are looking specifically at what we call climate-ready tree species. That's trees that are projected to be better suited to the climate conditions of the future. Next slide, please. So we're currently putting together a planting list that is going to be very extensive, all backed with research. What we currently have as a working list for tree species that we recommend for Davis, we have categories of small, medium, and large trees. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown on each of these species just briefly. So you can always come back to this slide and review on your own about the scientific names of these trees if you're going to be going to a nursery or if you're going to be seeking more technical advice on a particular species. But I'll just leave this table for now. Next slide, please. So some of our species highlights, some of the small trees that we are recommending are trident maple, which is what you see on the left-hand side, and the Oklahoma redbud, which is what you see on the right-hand side. The Trident maple, as a maple, has very nice fall color. It is a small stature tree, so when we have potential conflicts with, say, stop signs or light posts or any kind of overhead utility, these smaller trees are some of the ones that we think about. The Oklahoma Redbud on the right-hand side, as you can see, has glossy, beautiful, bright green foliage through most of the year. And in the springtime, it has those beautiful pink, reddish, purplish red buds. But you do have to think about, what does that tree drop? Sometimes there are seed pods and things like that to consider. So it's an absolutely gorgeous tree. Next slide, please. And for each of our size categories, I have one video profile of the tree. This is a desert willow, and we can watch this video.
Hi, it's Lisa again with Lisa's Landscape and Design, and today our featured plant is the desert willow. Desert willow is one of my favorite specimen trees. It reaches to about 25 feet in height, extremely drought tolerant, very, very low maintenance, if any. Once established, of course, as any plant, first couple years you give it a little excess water, and then beyond that it should be self-sufficient. But the flowers on this tree are so fabulous. This particular desert willow is called Bubba. I got to tell you, I'm not a big fan of that name. I don't think it does it justice. The flowers, if you can see comparatively to my hand, they're enormous. It is profuse. It is just getting started, but it is already covered with flowers. It will bloom profusely throughout the entire summer, and then it is deciduous. It would lose its leaves in the wintertime and then come right back in the spring. And it's just the middle of April. It's already completely ensconced in flowers. So okay. I just love this tree. There's two that are very popular here. One, of course, as I mentioned, this one, Bubba.
Great. That one goes on a little bit longer, but in the interest of time, I think you get the idea. That's our profile of our small tree, desert willow. Next slide, please. Some of our medium-sized trees to consider are the Triumph Elm, which is the upper left-hand side, the ginkgo, which depending on, it could go in either category. This could be a medium-sized tree or it could be a larger tree. Ginkgos are very long-lived species. They grow somewhat slowly. And so the average lifespan of an urban tree is not aligned with the potential lifespan of a ginkgo. And so in general, when you see these in the urban environment, they tend to be medium-sized. But if you take really good care of them, they can get big. Another one to think about is the white shield Osage orange, which is second to the right on the top, and the red push pistache, which has the beautiful fall color on the top right. Bottom left is the Chinese flame tree. This one is planted all around town. It has these beautiful sort of lantern-shaped seed pods that can have sort of like a blush pink color to them. And then that tree also has fall color in the fall. So we'll do next slide for our medium-sized tree profile, which is for the Emerald Sunshine Elm.
Good morning. My name is Greg McPherson, and I'm a volunteer with Tree Davis. I wanted to introduce you to one of our climate-ready trees that we're planting in the Community Shade Tree Program in Davis. This is the Emerald Sunshine Elm. It's a hybrid elm that is resistant to Dutch elm disease, and that disease killed millions of American elms throughout the Midwest and in California. So this is a resistant cultivar. It's very rapid growing, it's very drought tolerant, and it will get up to about 35 feet tall, 25 feet wide. It's a very nice vase-shaped elm. It's got a beautiful leaf, as you can see. Very clean, refined look to this tree. So if you're looking for a nice medium to small to medium sized shade tree, dense shade, very tough tree, this is a great choice.
Great. Next slide, please. And then some of our profiles of our larger shade trees. On the top left, we have the Cork Oaks, which are that quintessential beautiful cork bark that you see all over the UC Davis campus and in some places around town. The Texas Red Oak, which is the second to the left on the top. Beautiful fall color that comes with this tree. Also, if you're a fan of acorns, you'll get them with the Texas red oak. Kentucky coffee tree is second to the right on the top. And it's called the coffee tree because it does produce these seed pods that have beans that look like coffee beans. They're beautiful trees. You can find them. There's a big stand of these over on Regis Boulevard if you want to go take a look. The trees on that street are actually the genetic stock for Kentucky coffee trees all around the world. So that's one of Davis's claims to fame. A blue oak is on the upper right-hand side. And this is another one of those trees where it's a slow growing tree and a very long-lived tree. So ultimately blue oaks can become very large, but because it takes them so long to grow, we don't typically see them in large stature in the urban environment. Bottom left is the European hackberry. And second to left on the bottom is the Deodar cedar. And I just love the Deodar cedar. These trees, I've got a big one in my neighborhood here. And the local raptors, the Cooper's hawks, just love these trees. You'll see them up on the top, especially during mating season. These are very large, tall trees, so the birds can see for miles around. They love being up there. And they also produce these really beautiful rosette pine cones, or cedar cones, I should say. So I just love the Deodar cedar. Next slide, please. So now for our large species profile, this is the Canby's oak.
Good morning. My name is Greg McPherson, and I'm a volunteer with Tree Davis. I wanted to introduce you to Canby's oak. Quercus canbii. This is an oak that is climate ready. It is native of the Chisos Mountains in West Texas. It's also called the Chisos Oaks because of that. And also in northern Mexico. So it grows in very, very hot and dry. So it's quite tolerant of future type of growing conditions that we can expect here in Davis, California. We're planting this tree now in Davis through our community shade tree program, and it has a number of really interesting features. One is that it will get to be about 50 feet tall, and we think of oaks as being slow growing, but in fact this tree is quite rapid growing. This is only 5 years old and it's up 20-30 feet tall already after 5 years. So it's quite quick to establish. It's got very attractive foliage. You can see the lobed leaves, they're kind of glossy. It's a semi-evergreen oak. It's got small, tiny acorns. The bark is smooth and gray while it's young, and it's quite an attractive shade tree. So I think this is a very promising shade tree, and it might be a good one to plant in your yard if you have plenty of room, or as a street tree in front of your home. But it will get to be a pretty large tree, so you got to keep that in mind.
Great. Next slide, please. So I've gone through these pretty quickly. If you'd like to learn more about climate ready trees and our partner researchers at UC Davis and the US Forest Service, you can follow this link here, climatereadytrees.ucdavis.edu. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to tell you specifically about the Community Canopy program, and I have my program manager with me today, Yael Franco. Yael, do you want to tell us a little bit about Community Canopy?
Sure. So hey everyone, my name is Yael, and I am the program manager for our free shade tree community program, Community Canopy program. The goal of the program is to plant 1,000 new drought tolerant and community ready shade trees in the city. We are about 2/3 of the way done. We just started our 3rd season of tree planting. Another part of the program is that we are working to create a new urban forest management plan. The last one was written in 2002, I believe. So It is due for some updating, so we're working with the city to do that. We host community events every weekend to plant trees. So if you would like to help us finish planting the 1,000 trees through our program, we would encourage you to sign up for a volunteer event. And if you have space for a free tree in your front yard easement, you are welcome to sign up through our website. The link is there on the slide, and we'll have someone come out and take a look at your yard, and we would provide you with a free shade tree. So that's kind of the elevator pitch on Community Canopy. And yeah, we're very excited to be entering the planting season because there's a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Yael. Next slide, please. So this one I'm going to skip in the interest of time. This is a video on how to plant a tree. And you can come to one of our events and we will teach you in person how to plant a tree. And if you'd like to learn on your own, you're welcome to visit our website, and this video is available there. So next slide, please. So some of the other elements of young tree care are establishment watering, weeding and digging tree wells, mulching, determining the right time for stake removal, and monitoring. Next slide, please. Let's play this video and learn a little bit about young tree watering.
Hey, my name's Andy. I work for Tree Davis, and today I'll be showing you how to water a young tree. Now, I first want to say just how important it is to give your tree very slow, deep root waterings. If you're giving your tree very shallow root waterings, or using a sprinkler system or irrigation system that's used for other surface level plants, you are going to develop surface level roots. It's really important to use these methods we're about to show you that give the very slow, deep waterings so that your tree develops a deep established root system that can find its own water. We also want to make sure that you're giving your tree about 15 gallons of water a week, every week for the first few years of its life, whenever it's not raining. When it is raining, of course, you don't need to water it, and you might even have to give them more water in the summer, such as when it gets above 100 degrees. But of course, this is something that you can kind of play by ear. Now, the three methods we have for you today are the hose method, the bucket method, and the watering bag method. Now, the hose method is very straightforward. You simply put your hose at the base of the tree, set it to a slow trickle, and let it soak for about 2 hours. Ideally, you want to be giving it about 15 gallons of water, so you can put your hose in a 5-gallon bucket, set it on a slow trickle, and see how long it takes to fill the bucket, then multiply this time by 3, and that will be how long it takes to give it at least 15 gallons of water. The alternative method is to take a 5-gallon bucket and drill a small hole at the bottom, then put it at the base of your tree and fill it up with water about 3 times a week. It will slowly drain out, giving the tree all the water it needs. Our final method is the watering bag method, where you purchase a Gator Bag or Gator Bag Junior and just fill it with water. It has lots of small holes on the bottom that slowly drain out at the base of the tree over the course of 5 to 9 hours. Alternatively, you can use irrigation. Just make sure that the irrigation you're using provides slow, deep waterings as well to establish these deep root systems. Thank you very much for watching our video, and have a great day.
Awesome. Next slide, please. So another important thing is weeding around the base of the tree and providing mulch. As you can see on the left-hand side, there's a big gash in the trunk of the tree that's from either a lawnmower or a weed whacker, and that shortens the tree's life considerably. So weeding and mulching is important. Next slide, please. And in the interest of time, we're going to skip this one. This is another video that you can find on our website that gives you the technical aspects of how to mulch your tree. Next slide, please. When to remove the stake. Make sure that a couple years in, you check to see if the tree is well established in the root ball. You can just hold the trunk of the tree, push it back and forward a little bit, and look at the base of the tree. If that, you can still see that root ball moving in there, it still needs the stake, but you don't want to leave that stake on too long, or you might end up getting what you see on the right-hand side, which is girdling of the tree by the stake. Next slide, please. Pruning is a whole class in and of itself. So we're not going to do it right now, but young structural pruning helps give greater long-term structural integrity and avoid the problems like you see in these photos, which is a whole bunch of codominant stems on the left and big wounds on the right. Prevent tree emergencies, it saves money, you have smaller cuts, and you can find a full tree pruning guide in that PDF link at the bottom. And I think we've, mature tree watering is probably the last slide we're gonna do. So much like your young tree watering, infrequent deep watering is very important. Make sure to water trees 1 to 2 times a month if it's not consistently raining. Use a soil moisture meter or dig down a few inches to determine the soil moisture before you add water. There might be moisture down there that you're not able to see. And then use 4 to 6 inches of mulch to help maintain that moisture layer and reduce weed growth around your trees. And so we don't have very much time left. I want to make sure that if folks have questions, we have time to answer some of those. This last video that we're not going to watch now is about Tree Davis's Climate Ready Landscape Initiative. I invite everyone to come to our website and learn more about what Tree Davis is doing to fight climate change. But we'd like to open it up for questions.
If you have questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we can take those questions. Definitely want to say thank you to Aaron and Yael for the presentation today. I learned a lot and I thought I knew a decent amount about trees, but there was a lot of new information for me. And the Tree Davis website has so many resources beyond the ones that were specifically mentioned here. So definitely go take a look. The city's website also has information under urban forestry, but we link a lot to Tree Davis's resources too.
Yeah, and just to mention, we just totally revamped our resources page on our website. If you go to treedavis.org, in the top menu, there's Learn and Explore. And we've got a ton of videos and handouts and educational materials, and we invite everyone to take a look.
I don't see any hands raised here.
Well, in that case, we can watch the video.
Let's go ahead and play the video. And if people need to drop off, they can. And thank you for attending.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
How can you help Tree Davis safeguard our urban ecosystems for future generations? Introducing the Climate Ready Landscape Initiative and Fellowship Program. We have incredible natural resources across Yolo County, including in our urban spaces. The urban tree canopy and understory environment are our primary connection to nature, where we live, work, and play. Climate change projections indicate that over the next century, Yolo County will become hotter, changing the optimum temperature ranges for our local plant species palette and making ambient temperatures less comfortable for residents. The region is also projected to become drier, with longer, scorching summer conditions and less water availability. These climate change impacts are unsettling and threaten up to half of the current tree species in our shared urban landscape. But we are not powerless in the face of these threats. Many researchers and universities have outlined action steps for refining our urban plant species palette to meet the climate change conditions as they emerge. And Tree Davis is ready to help make these recommendations a reality. Working in partnership with UC Davis and local municipalities, Tree Davis is actively working to help generate new plant species palettes for our region. We've already begun planting climate-ready tree species across Davis city limits. Our next big step will be scaling up the planting frequency of climate-ready trees and reimagining the landscapes in which urban trees are planted. We aim to convert underused turf areas to understory plant communities that include native and drought-tolerant plants that will confer much greater ecological value and withstand greater heat. Investing in these climate-ready landscapes will benefit everyone. By bringing plant diversity into our public green spaces, we will all enjoy more natural space in our neighborhoods. By including native understory species in the plant palette, pollinators will have a mosaic of habitat patches across our urban setting. And by keeping green spaces green, we will safeguard the evapotranspirative cooling benefits that plants provide, acting as living air conditioners and shade resources across our town. Collectively, the Climate Ready Landscapes Initiative will improve the viability and resilience of our public landscapes and safeguard their benefits for future generations. We're also keeping community engagement at the heart of our initiative. We're creating a fellowship program that will bring community members together in the care and stewardship of the new climate-ready landscapes, training the next generation of urban ecosystem stewards. So please join us today in keeping Yolo County a livable, vibrant, and green place to call home. Donate today to support Tree Davis and the climate-ready landscapes of tomorrow. Thank you so much from your local leaders in planting trees and growing community.
Well, thank you all for attending. That was a good note to end on. And thanks again to Aaron and Yael.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been a real pleasure. And everybody, feel free to reach out with us with any questions you might have.
Thank you.